A Sapphire Running Zone podcast.
Hi everyone, this is Tim from the Sapphire Running Zone, and this is another of our Runner Stories podcasts. And today we are joined by George, and George has just run the London Marathon in a very speedy time. So it'll be great to get George's thoughts on how he did it. He's done quite a few marathons, so we'll run through a bit of that. Welcome, George, and tell us how you got into marathon running.
Wow, that's going back in time. I did my first half in 2016 down in Brighton. Yeah, I was quite sporty as a kid, played football quite a lot, but yeah, as most younger people do, I kind of was drinking and partying quite a lot. But yeah, did that first half, and I thought maybe one day I'll do a marathon. And yeah, I lived in London for 18 years, and obviously the marathon would be happening, and I just didn't really take too much attention to it. And then one day I was actually traveling through London, and it was marathon day. And I remember when it was on the DLR and the doors opened and I heard this almighty roar, and I was like, what the hell's going on out there? And then people were like, oh, it's London Marathon. And I was like, wow, it just never occurred to me like how big it was. And obviously I'd watched it on TV when I was a kid and stuff like that. And I literally had a moment there. I was like, I'm running it next year. I don't care how I get a place, I'm doing it, It was just out of nowhere, and like many, put my name in the ballot. It's almost impossible to get a place that way. And then I was just so hell bent on doing it. Obviously the charity route was an obvious way to go, and I think I applied for a couple of different charities. But yeah, Ability Bow got back to me, and they're a charity who have a gym in East London that have specialist equipment for disabled people to use to exercise. And as part of having that place, I went and visited the gym, and I met the people who work there and the people from the charity and people who use the actual equipment. It was really kind of fantastic. But yeah, that first marathon, it was in 2018, and obviously it was quite daunting. The amount of money, I can't remember how much it was at that point, but it was at least 2,000 I think I had to hit. I somehow managed to get to like 3,400 I think in the end, by just badgering people, relentlessly. Yeah, it's a bit of a baptism of fire, that first one. I remember when my partner left me at Blackheath, and I was thinking, well, I might die today. I was that scared.
Did it that much that you ended up moving into the sector, and now you're involved with the London Marathon?
Well, yeah, it's kind of a full circle story, really, because of that kind of inkling of I'm just doing the London Marathon. Yeah, I got kind of involved with running for charities and working with them quite closely. Yeah, now I've been working for an MS charity for the last couple of years now, and absolutely love it. Very rewarding.
So you're now working for the MS International Federation, and you've got entries for the first time, and that's in next year's marathon.
Yeah, we're taking applications at the moment.
So talk us through your time on that first marathon and the subsequent marathons you've done.
Yes, well, London Marathon just last Sunday was my 9th actually marathon now, so I've went a bit crazy with it. But my first marathon, yeah, it was 4 hours 20, I think I did it in, but it was the hottest London Marathon ever. I think it was 24 degrees that day. I really struggled anyway in the heat, because I'm northern and I'm very pale. But yeah, I don't know. I just got the bug. Like I said, I've done 9 marathons, but I still think London is the best. The atmosphere, the charity side of it, it's just incredible. But yeah, so I did London in 2018, and then I did a marathon in Gdansk in Poland, because my partner's Polish, and I did that in 3 hours 40, I think it was. So I managed to knock off about 40 minutes. And then I did Berlin in 2019, and I did it in 3:25, I think it was, something like that. And it was apocalyptic rain that day. Like, I've never seen rain like it. Everything was soaked. And then obviously 2020 came, and obviously all the lockdown stuff happened, and I kind of jumped at the chance to do the lockdown London, although it was very foolish because I hadn't done any training. Although I was cycle fit, because I was cycling to the office every day, so I was fit, but I wasn't like run fit, so it didn't go very well. Yeah, and then what year is it? I think it was 2023. I did London again, and I think I did it in 3:22, and then I did New York. I caught COVID 10 days before the race, and Yeah, it was a bit of a disaster. I was so sick that I didn't know if I could even get on the plane. But I thought, look, I've paid all this money now because I went through sports tours. You get your place and the hotel and everything. But yeah, I managed to somehow get through that race.
You've just stormed around this one in 3 hours and 5 minutes. How have you gone from 4 hours 20 to just over 3 hours?
Being determined and not giving up is the first thing. Second thing is I joined a running club, Athletics. They're based in London. I live down in Brighton now. But yes, they're run by a guy, Nick Bester, who runs, I think, 219 marathon. Yeah, so it's just, I think that made a big difference. And I got a coach, which obviously not everyone can afford. But I thought if I want to do this, I want to try and do it properly. Because previously I'd either not had a plan or I was just following out of a book. I did like the Hansen method a few times, but I just thought a human can help. And it did, because I started, I always never did like speed sessions or track sessions. I'd never actually been to a running track since I was a kid up until like 2 years ago. But it was, so that's made a big difference. And then I guess the shoe side of it as well, and nutrition as well. Like I went vegan a few years ago. I kind of got really geeky about like shoes and stuff like this. I know it's only minute, but I'm sure it kind of helps a little bit.
A bit about your track sessions, George. How often do you go, and what are those sessions made up of?
I haven't been to the track for a little bit, but I usually do like track sessions in a park near me. So it's generally kind of speed sessions and like threshold effort. To try and think of some of the workouts I did, it would be like 3 by 5 minutes with like a 1 minute rest and stuff like that, with like maybe a 15-20 minute warm up and cool down on either side. Yeah, they're killer sessions. Lots of swearing while you're going around. I think they're about 45-50 minutes probably, with the warm up and cool down. So it's not crazy long, but quite intense.
And then on top of that, you're doing your long run and then 3 other runs during the week, or 2 other runs?
Yeah, I'm usually running 6 days a week, I'd say. Yeah. Sunday's usually my long run, which obviously would go from like 16 to 20 miles. I wouldn't really go too much further than 20. With like usually, what my coach has done really well is putting blocks of the marathon pace on the day into the long runs, which kind of increases over time. So maybe there would be like a few miles in the earlier long runs, and then it's built up over time. I think the longest I did was like an 11-mile block at marathon pace within like a 19-20 mile run, which was a killer.
So on that last week, when you did your 20-mile long run, what else were you doing in that week then? Are your midweek runs up to sort of 9 or 10 miles?
Maybe not that long, maybe like 6 or 7. Yeah, just easy miles. Yeah, I think the most mileage I do on a peak week's about 50 miles. So it's probably not crazy loads for like top runners, but I found that's kind of my peak at the moment. But I'd like to build upon it.
Okay, and talk us through the nutrition side of things then. When are you taking gels, and are you taking them from the start of a long run or after half marathon state, or what's the plan?
Yeah, I guess if I'm doing a run, that's probably about half marathon and up. I'll do gels. What I usually do, and I don't know if this is correct science, but I usually divide the run up into like 2/3 or quarters, and then I'll have a gel, every 3 to 4 miles or something. I don't like running with anything in my hands, or like, I've never ran with like a belt or anything, stuff like that.
What did you do at the London Marathon then? You didn't take anything with you apart from?
Yeah, only gels. Yeah, I've got like these tights with 2 massive pockets in them, these Adidas tights, and there's enough for like 6-7 gels in there. Yeah.
Okay, and you'd obviously train with that specific gel on all your long.
Yeah, what I've started doing is I use Morton gels for like the race, and then maybe my long runs, because I find them, because it's kind of thicker consistency. I like just like having a bit. So what I'll do is I'll take a gel every 3 to 4 miles. I'll eat the gel across that whole mile. So I won't just like wolf it down in one go, because I've noticed it gives me a bad stomach. So I'll take a bite of it and then keep running and just slowly swallow that and have it across the whole mile each time.
Interesting. And are you diluting that with water, or are you just taking that?
No, just as it is. Yeah. Because the Morton ones, well, one, they're expensive, and that's why I don't use them so much in training, but two, they're like such a thick consistency that it is like jelly. Whereas I do train with the high five ones because they're cheaper just generally, but they're like liquid. And sometimes I went to take them and I've spilt it all the way down me. So yeah,
They are a there's a skill to taking them, isn't there? Particularly if
yeah,
doing at the pace that you are. I think a lot of runners, I sort of say to them, look, when you pull over at the water station, just
yeah.
have 30 seconds to yourself, sip a bit of water, take a gel, and then move on. But you obviously don't want to be doing that across multiple water stations.
Yeah.
Or basically taking yours on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I guess you have to kind of teach yourself to do that as well, because you're out of breath. And I've taught myself, don't take a gel when you're going uphill. It never ends well.
Talk about hills. What hill training do you incorporate into your schedule?
To be honest, my coach hasn't really put any hill training this time, or I don't think last time either. But the nature of living in Brighton now, it's such a hilly place that, it doesn't matter which direction I go, there'll be a hill on part of the route, But I'm not specifically doing any like hill sprints or anything, but maybe it's something I could be looking into.
When you did London this time, did you have a very clear plan, and did you have a record of what splits you needed to be at a certain point?
Yeah. So like I was training to try and do sub 3 for the first time. I think I've tried technically twice. Once I shouldn't have, because it was actually London 2023 and I got to 16 miles and I absolutely hit the wall like really badly. And then I tried again last year in Poland. I did one in Poznan in Poland where my partner's from. And again, same thing happened. I felt more prepared this time. I really trained to that pace.
Why do you think the other two didn't?
It's hard to put a finger on. The first time I'd not ran that pace at all in training. So I'd gone off like a firecracker. And I think I went through halfway in a PB feeling amazing, turned the corner from Tower Bridge and then just went into a world of pain, which wasn't fun. I think the second time, well, I dabbled with, I don't know if people know the Runner app. So I was trying to save a bit of money by just trying out that app. And it really pushed me way too hard. Like the training sessions on there were too fast for me. They were too intense. Even the easy days were too fast. And I was adjusting what way it was telling me to run because I felt so fatigued. And I think I got to the race and I was just wiped out before I'd even started. And I think that's so that was kind of one of the main things I thought I need to go back to my coach.
Actually write down the splits.
Yeah, they hand them out at the expo, but they didn't. What they should do is they have like 4 hours, 5 hours, 3 hours or whatever, but it should be 3:59 or 2:59 or whatever, because obviously people want to dip under the hour mark. So I picked up the 3 hour one, but then I just flipped it over and then I wrote on every 5K split on the other side, and then I had a bit of glue on there so I could wrap it around my wrist. Yeah, I knew fairly early on that I was already slipping away from the splits. It didn't help that I needed a pee within the first mile. I had to run into the port. And then I was like, oh crap, I need to catch up. So I sprinted out of there like a lunatic. I think I did like mile 2 at like 6:17 pace, which was like stupid. But obviously the heat played a massive, part in, and I know a lot of people struggled this year at London. Yeah, and I got to like mile 20 and the cramps came in. And I generally did slow down by about 20, 30 seconds a mile at that point, and I just couldn't go any faster. It was just like I was trying to not cramp all over.
I knew that the 3 hour aspiration had gone at that point.
Yeah, I knew. Like my A goal was sub 3. My B goal was obviously the PB, and my C was obviously just to finish. But in the back of my mind as well, I was wanting to run under 3:05 because although I'm sure they'll change it, I was trying to qualify for Chicago. And I had previously qualified and then they changed it again. So, and I know they're squeezing the times because it's just getting more popular and people are getting faster. So obviously I went over, I was 3 seconds over 3:05. So I was basically 4 seconds off qualifying, but I'm sure they'll change the standard again.
Yeah, I mean, I think given the weather, to only be 5 minutes outside where you wanted to be is a real achievement, because I'm
Yeah.
not sure there are many people that did what they wanted to do that day.
No, I read like still some Strava stats on everyone who ran, and everyone was like 10 minutes at least slower. But I spoke to some people at Parkrun on Saturday because I had my London Marathon t-shirt on, and the guy I spoke to was like, I was 45 minutes slower than I wanted to go, so everyone struggled.
So
So I actually surprised myself how well I did, considering, I was slightly disappointed at first, but then hearing all the other stories and how, got to take it. A PB's a PB.
well, it's a fantastic time. I mean, it's a
Mm.
fantastic time on any day, but given the weather, given the temperature on that race, I think it was an unbelievable performance. So when are you going to be able to have another go then? What's the plan?
So I've signed up for Valencia in December, so that's my next goal. I'm itching to go again, which is a good sign, I think. I've done marathons in the past where I was like, oh God, I need like a month off. But yeah, I'm kind of keen to get going again, although at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, you should really take a bit of a break.
Let's just flick back to the fundraising for a second. Then you talked about raising 3,000 when you did it in, previously for Ability Bow. What was what was the guts of your fundraising approach in that race and in others that you fundraised for?
Well, I think my approach was just nagging people until they give up money. It is difficult, I know, because I work for a charity as well, but it's just making sure people know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and starting with friends and family and colleagues. But there's only so far I can kind of go with that. I ended up the first time I did it, so I've got a background in music. I went to music school, I played guitar, I was in like little bands and stuff like that. So I thought I'll put on a gig, and I put on 2 gigs. I put on a music gig and a stand-up comedy gig because my friend was like an aspiring stand-up comedian at the time. The music gig was an absolute nightmare to organize, like equipment. I had to get a sound guy, like a proper venue. My mates came down from Cumbria, where I'm originally from, for the gig. So it was just a logistical nightmare. And I think I came away with like 60 quid profit, which, it's better than nothing, but for the stress that I'd gone through. But on the flip side, the stand-up comedy gig was like an absolute success. My friend booked a bunch of his mates that he knew from the London, open mic scene. I think we charged like a tenner on the door, and there was no sound guy. All we needed was a mic and a light. People were so generous, and I think I raised 450 quid that night, which I was like, this is unbelievable, like we should keep doing this. And we did, but it just slowly went just downhill. But I think that's such a good idea, to try and do an event, because people don't feel like they're donating. They just feel like they're going to a gig,
getting something, aren't they? And I think that's,
yes,
I've talked to a lot of people about this. There's only so many times you can go back to people saying, come on, you start and sponsor me.
Yeah.
Would you like to come to this event, where they're getting a night out or a dinner party or whatever it is?
Yeah.
And I think that seems to be a real trend, and something that I think more and more people are going to have to do. You have to do some work, you have to put some effort in. But ultimately, if you can get 450, I mean, that is really good. But if you can get £450 from a night, well, that puts a real dent in your target.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it was great fun as well. And it was a lot less stressful than the music gig. Everyone had a great night. And yeah, like I said, we kind of kept it going for a little bit. But it was tough to keep the night going. And it got to the point where I was kind of losing money running a charity night. And I kind of thought, well, let's call it a day. But the original idea of it worked so well,
Was there any particular social media platform that performed for you when you were asking for donations?
I think Facebook mostly, because I'm probably of that age. So all my friends are kind of lurking around on there. But yeah, I was sending out emails, like WhatsApp as well. I was just spamming any groups that I was in, because you just get to so many people quite fast. But it got to the point where people were donating to shut me up, but then they'd forgotten they'd donated, and then like a few months later I was like, oh hey, give me some money, and then they were donating again, and I was like, I'll take it.
Have you got another fundraising event in mind? I know it's difficult, isn't it? And you've got to make sure you don't keep going back to the same people too often.
Yeah.
I think some people have run the marathon this year on a charity entry, are like, oh yeah, I want to do it again next year for a charity. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, it's difficult.
yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, if you had someone coming to the charity for one of your entries for next year and they said they'd run it this year and raise £3,000, what would your thoughts?
Well, yeah, that is a really good point. You know, donor fatigue's a real thing. I guess there'd be questions around can their work match any donations? I think a lot of workplaces now do match up to a certain amount. But yeah, like personally, I've kind of held off doing another marathon for charity just for a fair few years, just to try and leave a gap. So maybe when I do go back, maybe they will donate again. But it's tough. Yeah, it gets harder each year. You have to do something more adventurous.
You've got to be innovative, haven't you? And I think there's too many people who just think, hitting social media will do it. Yeah. If you've got 100,000 followers, then maybe it will. But, many of us in that position. So I think you've got to be clever. You've got to think about it. And if you have done it one year and you want to do it the following year, then you're going to have to come up with a whole new fundraising strategy because you just won't be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, it gets difficult. But that's kind of why I was like, if I can just get to the point where I could qualify, I wouldn't need to worry about like a ballot or, so, I'm getting closer, but each year, they keep knocking off more time, but I'm like 40 in July, so it's slightly slower, but it's still hard.
Your aspirations to do the 6 majors?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I've done 3 now. Like I said, I've done Berlin, New York, and London a few times now. It's really annoying because, like I said, I thought I qualified for Chicago, and actually my partner, her family live out in Chicago, and I've been there twice now, and I was like, I just want to do the bloody race. But I never, I haven't ran a qualifying. I never get in the ballot. So, I am considering going down the charity route because I just really want to do it. Obviously, and like Boston's obviously a difficult one. But again, I'm getting closer to the qualifying time. And then Tokyo, I don't know. That's just a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, Tokyo's a real tough one to get into. There's a few UK charities with entries. Chicago, there's a lot of US charities with entries. Some, I think, in the UK. But yeah, Tokyo is big money to fundraise. And I think they always allocate a certain amount of international entries. But again, the sports tours option is one potentially for Tokyo.
Yeah.
I ran that many years ago, and unfortunately it was a bit like your day in Berlin. I think it was biblical rain, and
man,
on a day like that, you just want the thing done. You barely take in any of the scenery, which I'm sure was the same with you in Berlin. It's just get me to the finish.
Yeah.
It's a shame when that happens, but
yeah, it's not like you can just go back and do it. It's quite an expensive trip, I presume.
Yeah, that is an expensive one. But yeah, you've got some great opportunities, and with times like that, you're always going to be near the front, which is great.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice then to people who have done a 4:30 marathon a few days ago, and they've always wanted to get into the 3s? I mean, you moved up very quickly, didn't you, from that first one to then do 3:40? What would you put that down to, and what tips have you got to people wanting to get?
Yeah, because I think if you can join a running club really helps because you just around people who of all different speeds and stuff like this. I think that definitely helps. Just getting yourself a decent pair of shoes as well. That will go a long way to help as well. Yeah. I don't know, like cut out a lot of alcohol and stuff like that. I was a big drinker when I was younger. So I kind of like cut down on booze, more conscious of like health, and what I eat and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, and just getting yourself a structured kind of plan really helps, I find that like if I have something and I have to do it and it's popped up on my phone or whatever, on my watch or whatever, like I'm like, right, I'm just going to go and do it and see what happens, Yeah, I think that those are the things that have kind of really helped me. But I think you've got to love running as well, or love the challenge of running. You might not love it every day, but yeah, it's like something you can continuously work on and can always get better. Because I'm looking at people who are faster than me going, wow, I don't know how they get to that point. And you're right, look, if I did 4 hours 20 and I would never have imagined, I'd got down to 3:05 and hopefully I'll maybe go faster at some point. But yeah, I always say to people, it's like, it doesn't matter how fast you go, you still get the same medal. It was really nice actually on the morning of London. Like I got chatting to a couple of people it was their first marathon. And it was quite nice for me going into my 9th to be like, look, you'll be fine. Go out slow, take it easy, enjoy the crowds, don't overheat, make sure you take on water and stuff like that. And it was nice to be like that person on the other side of the fence, maybe, which I really found.
Yeah, that's been really useful, George. Appreciate that. It'd be great to have another conversation with you after Valencia. You'll have a time with the 2 in front of it then, no doubt.
Oh, well, fingers crossed.
It's a great event, and I'm sure you'll love it. So thanks very much for joining us. Good luck.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this Sapphire Running Zone podcast. Keep checking back as we have lots more podcasts coming soon.